It is the 4th century BCE, in the small yet rising kingdom of Macedonia in northern Greece. Alexander is born in 356 BCE to King Philip II, a shrewd and ambitious ruler, and Queen Olympias, a deeply spiritual and fiercely determined woman. Legends surround his birth. Some say that on the night he was born, the temple of Artemis at Ephesus burned down, an omen of the destruction Alexander would one day bring. Olympias, a devout believer in the gods, claimed that her son was destined for greatness. From a young age, Alexander displayed exceptional qualities. He was fearless, intelligent, and inquisitive. One famous story from his youth tells of his taming of Bucephalus, a wild and seemingly untamable horse. At just 12 years old, Alexander realized the horse was frightened of its own shadow. He turned it toward the sun and, with patience and skill, mounted the animal. This act of courage and insight impressed his father, who reportedly said, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedonia will not contain you." Alexander's education was equally extraordinary. King Philip hired the great philosopher Aristotle to tutor him. 4 years, Alexander studied literature, philosophy, science, and politics. He developed a deep love for Homer's Iliad and carried a copy with him throughout his life, seeing himself as a modern Achilles. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander grew into a man of both intellect and action, blending the wisdom of Greece with the fiery ambition of Macedonia. In 336 BCE, tragedy struck when King Philip II was assassinated during a grand celebration. At just 20 years old, Alexander ascended the throne. Though young, he wasted no time asserting his authority. Many doubted his ability to rule, and rivals both within and outside Macedonia sought to challenge him. Alexander acted swiftly. He crushed rebellions in Greece, securing his control over the city-states. When the powerful city of Thebes revolted, Alexander responded decisively, razing it to the ground as a warning to others. Only the temples and the house of the poet Pindar were spared. This brutal action established Alexander as a leader not to be trifled with. With Greece firmly under his rule, Alexander turned his attention to a larger ambition, conquering the Persian Empire. Philip had dreamed of this conquest, but it would be Alexander who brought it to life. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont, modern-day Dardanelles, into Asia Minor, leading an army of 40,000 soldiers. His campaign began with a symbolic gesture. He visited the ancient city of Troy and paid homage to Achilles, his hero. Alexander declared himself ready to create his own epic story. The first major test came at the Battle of the Granicus River. Facing a formidable Persian force, Alexander demonstrated his boldness and tactical genius. Charging at the enemy himself, he led his men to a decisive victory, securing Asia Minor and boosting the morale of his troops. The following year, Alexander faced King Darius III at the Battle of Issus. Darius commanded a vast army, far outnumbering Alexander's. Yet, Alexander's strategy and leadership turned the tide. In a daring move, he personally led a charge directly at Darius, causing the Persian king to flee. The victory was monumental. Among the spoils, Alexander captured Darius's family, including his wife and daughters, but treated them with honor and respect, earning admiration even from his enemies. Alexander continued his campaign along the Mediterranean coast, liberating cities from Persian control. In 332 BCE, he arrived in Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians, resentful of Persian rule, crowned Alexander as pharaoh, declaring him a god-king. During his time in Egypt, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria. Designed to be a center of trade, learning, and culture, it became one of the most important cities of the ancient world. The city's famous library, established later, would symbolize the blending of Greek and Egyptian knowledge, reflecting Alexander's vision of cultural unity. In 331 BCE, Alexander and Darius met again at the Battle of Gaugamela, one of history's most decisive battles. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander's innovative tactics and fearless leadership led to a crushing defeat for Persia. Darius fled once more but was later betrayed and killed by his own men. With Darius dead, Alexander declared himself the rightful ruler of the Persian Empire. He marched into the great Persian capitals, Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, claiming their immense wealth. At Persepolis, he burned the royal palace, reportedly as revenge for Persia's earlier invasion of Greece. Some accounts suggest it was a drunken act, but it symbolized the end of Persian dominance and the rise of Alexander's empire. Alexander's ambition knew no bounds. By 327 BCE, he had subdued the vast Persian Empire, and his conquests stretched from Greece to Central Asia. Yet this was not enough. Restless and driven by an insatiable desire for glory, Alexander turned his sights eastward to the Indian subcontinent. He sought to conquer lands that lay beyond the known world and to cement his legacy as the ruler of all civilizations. Crossing the formidable Hindu Kush mountain range, Alexander and his army entered a land of towering peaks, vast rivers, and dense jungles. Here, they encountered new challenges: harsh weather, unfamiliar terrain, and fierce resistance from local rulers. Despite these obstacles, Alexander pressed on, his unwavering resolve inspiring his troops. Among the many battles fought during his Indian campaign, the most famous and significant was the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BCE. Alexander faced King Porus, a ruler known for his immense stature and courage. Porus commanded a formidable force, including war elephants, giant, armored beasts that struck terror into the hearts of Alexander's soldiers. As the two armies faced off, the Hydaspes River swelled with monsoon rains, creating yet another challenge. Undeterred, Alexander employed his characteristic ingenuity. Under the cover of darkness, he led a portion of his army across the river at a less guarded point, surprising Porus and forcing him into a pitched battle. The clash was brutal and chaotic. The war elephants trampled through Alexander's ranks, sowing panic, but the Macedonian soldiers, trained and disciplined, adapted quickly. Using long spears, they targeted the elephants' handlers and drove the beasts into a frenzy. Meanwhile, Alexander himself led a decisive cavalry charge, striking at the heart of Porus's army. Despite the overwhelming odds, Porus fought valiantly. When the battle finally ended in Alexander's victory, the young king was deeply impressed by Porus's bravery and dignity. When asked how he wished to be treated, the defeated king replied, "Like a king." Admiring his spirit, Alexander not only spared Porus but restored him to power, granting him additional territory. This act of respect cemented a bond between the two rulers and showcased Alexander's belief in loyalty over mere conquest. After the victory at Hydaspes, he dreamed of marching further east, into the mysterious and wealthy lands described in legends. However, his army, worn down by years of relentless campaigning, had reached its breaking point. Exhausted and homesick, the soldiers refused to march any further. They yearned for their homes and families, and no promises of glory could sway them. Reluctantly, Alexander agreed to turn back. His dreams of reaching the fabled ends of the earth would remain unfulfilled. Yet the return journey would prove as challenging as any conquest. Instead of retracing their steps, Alexander decided to explore new routes. His army split into two groups, one led by his trusted general Nearchus, who sailed along the coastline, and the other by Alexander himself, who marched through the treacherous Gedrosian Desert, in present-day southern Iran. The desert crossing was brutal. Scorching heat, scarce water, and endless miles of barren sand took a devastating toll on the army. Soldiers and animals perished in droves, and supplies dwindled. Yet Alexander, ever the leader, endured the same hardships as his men. He marched alongside them, sharing their struggles and refusing special treatment. By the time they emerged from the desert, much of Alexander's once mighty force was depleted. Yet his indomitable spirit remained unbroken. In 323 BCE, Alexander returned to Babylon, the crown jewel of his empire. Despite the hardships of the journey, his mind was already racing with new plans. He envisioned conquering Arabia, expanding trade routes, and uniting his vast empire through ambitious infrastructure projects. Alexander also began organizing marriages between his generals and local women, hoping to forge bonds between cultures. Yet fate had other plans. In June 323 BCE, Alexander suddenly fell ill after a banquet. Over the course of several days, his condition worsened. Some accounts describe a fever, while others suggest poisoning. Despite the efforts of his physicians, Alexander's body grew weaker. On June 10 or 11, at just 32 years old, the great conqueror passed away. As he lay dying, his generals reportedly asked him who should succeed him. Alexander's cryptic reply, "To the strongest," set the stage for years of conflict among his successors. Alexander's death marked the end of an extraordinary life, but his legacy would endure for centuries. At the time of his passing, he had created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen, stretching from Greece to Egypt and India. Yet his true impact lay not in the territory he controlled but in the cultural transformation he initiated. Alexander's conquests spread Greek ideas, art, and language across the ancient world. Cities he founded, such as Alexandria in Egypt, became centers of learning and innovation, where Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian cultures blended. This era of cultural exchange, known as the Hellenistic Age, saw advancements in science, philosophy, and the arts that would shape civilizations for generations. Moreover, Alexander himself embraced the diversity of his empire. He adopted Persian customs, married a Persian princess, Roxana, and encouraged his men to do the same. He envisioned a world where East and West were united, a dream that, while never fully realized, inspired future leaders. Alexander remains one of history's most enigmatic figures. To some, he is the ultimate warrior, a man of unparalleled courage and ambition who achieved the impossible. To others, he is a ruthless conqueror whose insatiable drive caused untold suffering. Yet Alexander was more than a conqueror. He was a visionary who believed in the power of unity and cultural exchange. His life, though brief, demonstrated the extraordinary heights a single individual can reach through determination, intelligence, and bravery. This is the story of Alexander the Great, the boy who tamed Bucephalus, the king who built an empire, and the legend who reshaped the ancient world. His name endures as a symbol of greatness, inspiring awe and admiration even in the modern age.